Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu Vajreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, text. What?
You can Windows duplicate.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Let me get to the verse. 29 and 30 today, I think. Okay, so Windows P. Is it showing? I'm clicking on duplicate and nothing's happening. Did that work? Nope, there's an owl. Okay. Duplicate. Let's try duplicate now. Okay, so is it showing now?
Mm.
It's showing up there though, right?
Yes.
Okay, but on Zoom it's not.
On the Zoom screen.
Oh, it's shown because it's paused. Hold on. For some reason it paused. Okay, is it showing now?
No, do not share. You have to share the screen.
Sometimes Zoom has a mind of its own. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Let's okay. Okay, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, texts 29 and 30 today. Abhuta Purva Sahasa.
Abhuta Purva Sahasa.
Abhuta Purva Sahasa.
Abhuta Purva Sahasa.
Shutridvyam Arditatmana.
Sustityam Aditatmana.
Shutridvyam Arditatmana.
Sustityam Aditatmana.
Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman.
Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman.
Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman.
Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman.
Matsado manyoreva cha.
Matsarohan Devacha
Matsado manyoreva cha.
Matsarohan Devacha
Does anyone want to do?
Abhutpurvasahasa
Abhuta purva sahasa.
Krishtatyam Avitamana
Kshutribhyam arditatmana.
Brahmanam Pratyat Abhut Brahman
Brahmanam pratyabhut Brahman.
Matsarohan Devacha.
Matsaro manyoreva cha. Okay, synonyms together. Abhutapurva, unprecedented. Sahasa, circumstantially. Kshut, hunger. Tridbyam, as well as by thirst. Ardita, being distressed. Atmana, of his self. Brahmanam, unto a Brahmana. Prati, against. Abhut, became. Brahman, O Brahmanas. Matsara, envious. Manu, angry. Eva, thus. Cha, and. O Brahmanas, the circumstances having distressed him with extreme hunger and thirst, the king directed toward the sage his anger and envy, which he had never before directed toward a Brahmana. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. For a king like Maharaj Parikshit to become angry and envious, especially at a sage and Brahmana, was undoubtedly unprecedented. The king knew well that Brahmanas, sages, children, women, and old men are always beyond the jurisdiction of punishment. Similarly, the king, even though he commits a great mistake, is never to be considered a wrongdoer. But in this case, Maharaj Parikshit became angry and envious at the sage due to his thirst and hunger by the will of the Lord. The king was right to punish his subject for coldly receiving him or neglecting him, but because the culprit was a sage and a Brahmana, it was unprecedented. As the Lord is never envious of anyone, so also the Lord's devotee is never envious of anyone. The only justification for Maharaj Parikshit's behavior is that it was ordained by the Lord. And then let's read text 30 and we'll go back to 29. We don't have to do call and response. I'll just read through it quickly. Satu Brahma Rishirang Se Gatasu Muragam Risha Vinirgachandanuskotya Nidaya Purdamagata. While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his palace. Purport. The king thus treated the sage tit for tat, although he was never accustomed to such silly actions. By the will of the Lord, the king, while going away, found a dead snake in front of him, and he thought that the sage who had coldly received him thus might be coldly rewarded by being offered a garland of a dead snake. In the ordinary course of dealing, this was not very unnatural, but in the case of Maharaj Parikshit's dealing with a Brahmana sage, this was certainly unprecedented. It so happened by the will of the Lord. I'll read 29 one more time. O Brahmanas, the circumstances having distressed him with extreme hunger and thirst, the king directed toward the sage's anger and envy, which he had never before directed toward a Brahmana. So one thing that stands out for me is when we read things happening in the Bhagavatam that sound normal to us, and they're saying it's unprecedented. Everyone knows what unprecedented means. Is there anyone who doesn't know what unprecedented means?
Never.
It never happened before. It never preceded before. So when we read that, when we see in our daily life, like, and not that in our daily life we see people putting dead snakes on people's shoulders, but just that reaction to things. So has anyone ever gotten short-tempered on a fasting day? Have you ever felt like you're a little irritable and it's
Yes.
oh yeah, it's harder to deal with people a little bit and you want things to become easier and easier for you and people to leave you alone when you're fasting, right? You're just thinking about I need to eat, I need to drink something, I have a headache, whatever the case may be. By the way, you should drink water if you have a headache. It's not good to let your body go to that extreme. But so here's Maharaj Parikshit, he's out hunting and he just excessive hunger and thirst. And so to say that it's unprecedented for him to have a reaction to that is just to show the character of people in that day and age, or at least the character of Maharaj Parikshit, because in the second purport, Prabhupada says, in the ordinary course of dealing, this was not very unnatural. So I guess to place a lifeless snake on someone's neck when you're angry wasn't Prabhupada saying unnatural. People get angry, they do things, they react. People get a little snappy when they're fasting because it, we're not accustomed to what we're surrounded in this day and age by people constantly telling us that we should pursue sense gratification, right? There's every commercial on, I mean, that's the whole point of an advertisement or a commercial is to entice you, to gratify your senses. And they take it an extra step where they entice you by saying you're entitled to it. It's not just, does this look good to you? It's this looks good to you. You deserve every type of sense gratification there is out there. You deserve it. You're entitled to it. You should, there's like a slogan for one place that was have it your way, you know, any way you want it, you should be able to have it. So our society starts creating that sense of entitlement, that sense of that the goal of life is sense gratification. So it's no wonder that this would be considered a natural thing, as Prabhupada's saying. It's a natural thing. It's a natural thing to snap when you're not getting what you want. It's a natural thing to act out towards people. But Maharaj Parikshit, he was on another level. He was he was a Raja Rishi, right? He was very Krishna conscious. He was very in control of his senses. He would never act that way towards the Brahmins. So the past several verses in the purports, Prabhupada's saying it over and over again, and usually says it right at the end, that this was the Lord arranged for this to happen. This wasn't an ordinary thing for Maharaj Parikshit with his character, his level of consciousness, his ability to deal properly with other. Well, as Prabhupada says here, the king knew well that brahmanas, sages, children, women, and old men are always beyond the jurisdiction of punishment. So if I ever do anything wrong here, you can't punish me. You can't chastise me. So it's the idea is that there was an understanding that people who are more vulnerable are not to be punished or attacked, right? So when a battle was fought, it was fought between male warriors on a battlefield, away from citizens, and it's completely different now. And I know we've talked about this before, but the fact that not only do citizens get killed, but leaders threaten to kill them, right? They threaten to kill citizens if they don't get what they want. So we see the opposite happening now. When someone doesn't get their way, they not only throw a temper tantrum in front of the whole world, but they threaten to attack these vulnerable people of society, children, women, old men, sages, brahmanas. Or they don't even recognize brahmanas, but they're willing to attack the most vulnerable people. And that often is a tactic they use in warfare, is that over the years, over the ages, the centuries, is that they may attack those vulnerable people because they know the leaders, uh, it'll reduce morale with the leaders that our own citizens are being attacked. But to think that the king, and of course, you know, when Prabhupada's saying the king was right to punish his subject for coldly receiving him, there was a different standard in and punish, I would say, we could say chastise, or, you know, when you have a situation where someone is the leader and the people of in his kingdom that he's leading, they start to just, they don't care about, they don't have respect for him. Like in this day and age, it's very common. We don't have respect for our leaders. It's just a common thing. But back then, to keep law and order, to keep people, well, happy, first of all, the kings were always committed to keeping their citizens happy. But at the same time, not to be in a position where they start to show a lack of respect. And of course, there's an exchange where the leaders have to act respectable. But if the citizens start showing disrespect, then it can create a lot of, you know, sometimes sometimes people are looking for something to be upset about, and gossip can spread like wildfire to the point where people are against somebody and they're not even sure why. There maybe even is something they didn't do wrong. So gossip can be very detrimental in that regard. So Prabhupada's saying this is kind of a normal thing, that this might happen, but not normal for Maharaj Parikshit. But for us to read this and say where Prabhupada says, okay, Maharaj Parikshit came into this sage's ashram. He didn't think about the fact that he might be in samadhi, that he might be in, engaged in meditation to the point where he's not aware of the outside world. But instead he acted out. He said, well, it's Krishna's arrangement. So for us, we can't just act out against the devotees and say, it was Krishna's arrangement. The reason why I yelled at you is because Krishna ordained it. And, because you can always misuse the philosophy, right? You can always say everything happens by the will of the Lord. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord.
Other devotee also should
What's that?
give it back. Other devotee.
Yeah.
This is also Krishna.
Yeah. I think one time Ravinda Sri Prabhu said that sometimes people sling verses like snowballs, it's like a snowball fight, just throwing verses at each other. Oh yeah, well, Krishna says this. Oh yeah, well, Krishna says that. So someone may say that. It's just that it's however I behave, it's not me, it's the Lord. He's ordaining it, and I can. So I've heard people use that excuse. I remember one time someone came to me. They used the Prabhupada story to justify. This person, this devotee, was in the habit of insulting other devotees, not chastising, just literally insulting, calling them names and things like that. So there was a little bit of pushback from the other devotees are saying, I can't act that way. So she came to me one day and she told a story about how one time someone came to Prabhupada to complain that that people were insulting him, and Prabhupada said that he needed to change his consciousness and not see it as an insult. And so I said, yes, that's true, but that's only half the story. The other half of the story is that those devotees are still responsible for offending, right? It's not that the first offense against the chanting of the holy names goes out the window because you should just be accepting of insults and not let your false ego get carried away with being insulted. Yeah, it's true. We should work on our reaction to things. So we'll see later on that this Brahmin, for him, it was like, it wasn't a big deal. He felt bad that the king came in, and he was so upset when he found out that his son cursed him. And he told his son, it's not a big deal. You shouldn't have cursed him. So he wasn't, but Maharaj Picture went home and he's like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I committed such an offense and let the reaction come. Right. So both parties have to see it that way. Both parties have to see that if someone insults me, I shouldn't take it seriously because I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. If someone's insulting me, maybe I did something wrong to them. We take the humble path, right? Maybe I've done something to upset them. And yes, I am lower than a straw on the street. So whatever they say about me, so you could take that humble route of just thinking I'm lower than the lowest. It doesn't matter if someone insults me, probably what they're saying is true. But the devotee who insults, they're still responsible. They still shouldn't be doing that, and they still will get a reaction for it. And so it's as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, we have to cultivate the holy name and the association of devotees, right? So we have to stay in Vaishnava Sangha. And if we aren't careful about offenses to Vaishnavas, Krishna will kick us out of the association of devotees. It's like, if you can't appreciate them, then maybe not stay with them, right? So if we want to go back to Godhead and we want to stay on this path and we want to stay fixed and we want to connect with Krishna, then we have to also connect with the Vaishnavas properly. We have to treat each other properly. So we can think along both tracks that I have to do everything in my power not to insult or criticize or offend another devotee. And I also have to do everything in my power not to take seriously when someone does it to me. I have to at least realize that, like in this story, if someone insults me, it happened for a reason. Now, it may not be, we also, at the same time, we also don't want to encourage Vaishnavas to make offenses against us, right? We don't want to go and say, Prabhu, thank you so much for insulting me. You should continue to do so because I really need to be chastised, because now you're helping, now you're enabling them to destroy their spiritual life, right? Now you're helping, you're accommodating their offenses. So you may,
Yes,
what's that?
yes, spiritual life also.
Yeah, their spiritual life. It's like if they commit offenses, it's going to ruin their spiritual life. And so we may want to kind of find a way to help them not commit offenses. If we can't talk to them ourselves, we can at least bring it to someone's attention. Hey, I'm concerned for this devotee. They've been insulting some people and it won't be healthy for them. And so someone, their mentor, may be able to talk to them about it. So we shouldn't go to either extreme. We may not take it personally, like I don't care if they insult me, but I'm concerned about their spiritual life. That's a different story. So we always want to see things from different points of views and understand all the levels of things that are happening, all the levels of things that are going on and how it affects us, how it affects them. And in the same way, I've seen also, I think I've said this before, but I've seen somebody use the modes of nature as an excuse. I didn't do it. Technically, the modes did it, right? It's just like never taking responsibility for our actions. When Krishna says that the modes control us, well, we choose to be in those modes, right? We're there because we put ourselves there. And so in that way, we are responsible. And even though we may be in the modes, there still is free will. Prabhupada says that, I mean, if you look up just like independence or the living entity being independent or having free will, Prabhupada says it hundreds of times that um, we're not a stone. He said that you have to make your own decisions. Otherwise, what are you? You're just a stone. So we say we're not a stone. We have our choices to make. The further we put ourselves into the lower modes, the less ability we have to make proper choices, but we're still responsible for putting ourselves in those modes, right? We know what the modes are. We know what effect they have on us, or at least we should take the responsibility of learning these things. And so if we know the modes, we want to stay away from them. If I know that in the mode of ignorance, I'm likely to choose the wrong thing, insult people, like if you read the description of the mode of ignorance, you basically do everything wrong. Everything. You choose the wrong thing. You think religion is your religion. You think, religion is your religion. You make the wrong choices. You insult people. You're lazy. You just sleep all the time. And so you want to stay away from that. If you read that description, you say, I'm going to do everything in my power to stay away from that mode. Because once I'm in there, I am going to be insulting people. I am going to be subject to envy, anger, greed. I'm going to be subject to, just my senses are going to be out of control. And so we want to make sure we avoid that. So we are responsible in that sense. When you come further up in the modes, your free will is more and more available to you. And so we want to have access to the free will so we do make the right choices. We do treat people properly, because when you read the description in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam about the mode of goodness, it's illuminating. Prakashakam is described. It's illuminating. Illuminating means you can see things. You can see things as they are. You can make the right choices. And there's happiness in the mode of goodness, actually. Now, we can get stuck there. We don't want to stop there. We're bringing ourselves up to the mode of goodness so that we can treat devotees respectfully, and so that we can choose, as in the mode of ignorance, it says, we think your religion is religion and vice versa. So um, we want to choose bhakti. We want to choose Krishna consciousness. We want to choose that practice. We want to make sure we know what is Vaishnavism and what isn't, right? Because even within Krishna consciousness, you could think something is bhakti that isn't, right? You can get it confused. You can confuse, for example, Hindu rituals with the practice of bhakti, with the practice of Krishna consciousness. You can get those confused. And so we really want to make sure that we're reading and studying, as the Shad Goswami Astika describes the six Goswamis as they scrutinizingly study the scriptures. So we want to scrutinizingly study the scriptures, know what the right thing is to do and apply it and really make sure that whatever choices we make, they line up with Guru Sadhu Shastra. They should always line up. And if we're not sure, we should look into it. Now we have the database at our fingertips. We can always look things up and see what Prabhupada says about a particular thing.
I heard in the classes you mentioned that the weed, when the creeper is growing, weed also grows.
Yes, weeds also grow, yeah.
He misunderstands the weed to the creeper.
Yeah, yeah.
For the weed.
Yeah, you water the weed instead of the creeper. If you mistake the weed for the creeper, the creeper and the weed grow up. Pratisarthi Prabhu was saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The weeds are growing so high, and you think that it's the creeper growing really high and going back to Krishna's lotus feet, but you're watering the wrong thing. So we don't want. That's a good point. We don't want to water the wrong thing. We really, really, really need to know. Prabhupada said that when devotees were distributing his books, he was he found out that the devotees weren't actually reading the books. So he was telling them, "Oh, you go out on books, and dear sir, please take this book. And read it. I haven't read it, but you should read it." So he was chastising the devotees that they should read every day. So we had that standard that we would read. We would always set aside time to read for at least an hour every day. So if you can find, should I say, try to find time in your schedule to set aside an hour every day for reading. Even if you read a half hour, you're going to find out a lot of things because when I first joined Krishna consciousness, I was told a lot of things. Many of them were true and many of them weren't. And so I started, at one point I had a job where I didn't have to be in until later. So I read for 2 hours every day. And as I was reading, I was like, oh my God, that's not what Prabhupada says about, that's what they told me is not at all what Prabhupada says. So sometimes people hear things and they repeat it, right? A devotee tells them, then they tell another devotee and it gets repeated. And it's actually not what Prabhupada said. It can sometimes be the opposite. So when you read Prabhupada's books, you start to see really what Prabhupada said, what Prabhupada's teaching, and how to apply it. So it's very important to read and study and hear classes by senior devotees and really get it right so you're not watering, as Parthasarthi Prabhu said, the weed. You're not watering the weed instead. We don't want to be putting our efforts into rituals that have nothing to do with Krishna consciousness, thinking that because they came from the same area of the world, they must all be angas of bhakti, right? We want to make sure we separate them out and say, this is an anga of bhakti, this is, because even Prabhupada talks about in his purports, things that in Prabhupada's language, the Hindus do this, the Vaishnavas do that. He says that in some purports. So he'll separate the two out, like, by the way, this is a Hindu ritual, this is not what Vaishnavas do. So we want to make sure we keep all that separate, and we want to make sure that we read Prabhupada's books scrutinizingly, take notes, share with other people, share your thoughts with other devotees, and just make sure that you're getting it correct and you're applying it properly. And that's why it's important also to be in the association of devotees. I've seen when people isolate themselves from devotees, they start getting the wrong conceptions. They start speculating and coming up with their own theories. And even if they're reading Prabhupada's books, they still somehow have the wool pulled over their eyes and they see it wrong. I've had a discussion with somebody recently who was came to a conclusion that's against what Prabhupada taught, but he used Prabhupada's teachings to justify it. So it's, you can really have, it's scary. It's actually almost scary to see because you think you could really have the wool pulled over your eyes. And when I was digging deeper, I found out that person, has kind of isolated themselves from the association of devotees. So we really have to be careful to stay in their association, to do the best we can, to not commit offenses, to really appreciate the Sangha and stay fixed in the proper conception of Krishna consciousness and in the proper practice. Okay, so it's 8:29. Does anyone have any comments, points, questions, realizations?
Yeah, the last layer is false ego. It's very, very strong.
Yeah, the false ego is very strong. Yes.
See, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether we are right or wrong. The question is like, we have to ask question to ourselves, like, I may be right and all the Vaishnavas around me may be wrong, but is it worth proving that I am right and displeasing so many Vaishnavas around me?
Yeah. Can everyone hear?
I'm gonna gain, right? By just proving myself is right. I may be right, that's okay. But like main thing is like what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, don't offend anybody.
Yeah.
So if Vaishnavas is pleased, and even if I'm right and they are wrong, Krishna can make, you know,
Make it
wrong
obvious.
out of right,
Yeah, yeah,
right
yeah.
out of wrong, as long as Vaishnavas and Krishna is pleased.
Yeah. Did
So there's
everyone?
no question of right or wrong. It's just that
Right.
whether the devotees around me are pleased and am I really trying to please Krishna or not?
Can everyone hear? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good computer.
It
Yeah,
just-
it's and even if we do need to express something, there's a way to do it. Sometimes we think that we either have to agree with everything or we have to say nothing, or we could just nicely express our thoughts on something, right? And then, like you said, like we could agree to disagree. We could just say, okay, I think it may be like this. No, I think it may be like that. Okay, we both have our um different ways that we see things. So what's the final decision? You know, it doesn't have to be that we start insulting one another or we go and gossip about it or whatever. It's just like try to work it out and see what you can do and then carry on with your spiritual life. Go chant your rounds. You know, it's like you try to work it out, you figure it out, and then go chant your rounds. Um, but yeah, that's the most important thing is that Krishna's pleased and Krishna's pleased when the Vaishnavas are pleased.
certain things like sometimes we have some opinion or something to share, like it should happen this way. We are trying, we are telling to everybody, and we try a couple times and it doesn't work out. And Vaishnava says, well, probably not. So if we stick on that, no, I'm right, what I'm saying should be done, and we keep pushing on that, what happens is sometimes it may be wrong because Krishna may not have that. Krishna may not want that to happen,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I asked him a question to Kalakanda Prabhu, like, how does we know whether what is Krishna's will? He said, if you endeavor too much
Yeah.
to make it happen, and if it's not happening, then understand that Krishna doesn't want it.
Yeah.
So that time, you're taking a humble position and letting it go and not pushing it too hard and often left and right Vaishnavas. That's the real intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe Krishna doesn't want it to happen. All right, let me take a humble position and let it go. Otherwise, also feels like we'll say, no, you are right. It must be done.
Has anyone ever had the experience where they pushed for something to happen? Sometimes it's not even just with other devotees. It's like you want something and you're pushing for it and pushing for it and pushing for it, and Krishna's not letting it happen, and you push and push and push, and you finally get it, and you're like, oh, that's why he wasn't letting me have that. Because Krishna at some point would finally say, all right, here you go, enjoy. And then you realize like, oh, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have. But has anyone ever had that experience where you kind of push for something and then you realize later why Krishna wasn't making it happen without your extra endeavor? Anyone on Zoom? All saints. Good.
With with the temple opening last year.
With the temple opening last year?
Yeah, we were pushing and then
Oh, right.
when the heater broke, then we understand.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you can see over time, I think when sometimes when we're newer in Krishna consciousness, we really are still have that gusto for getting what we want. And then as we get older, we realize like never works out. Just don't bother. Like you push for something and you see if it works. And if it doesn't, then you see what it was the message Krishna's trying to tell me. And it's Krishna knows what he's doing. He always knows what's best. So yeah, we just have to be careful in that regard and see that, you know, that's why when we ask Krishna, you know, we can pray to the devotees, I mean, to Krishna and still communicate with devotees, but say like, Krishna, what would you like? What would you like us to do? And he usually tells us. But if we say, Krishna, why don't you let me have this? We misunderstood. We misunderstood the whole thing, you know, it's just Krishna will give us what we need for our spiritual life, and we just pray. What would you, what, you know, what's that, the Sanskrit word for servant is Kimkara. That means what to do. What do you want me to do? What should I do? So we're always asking Krishna, how can I serve you? Should I serve you this way or this way? And then see whatever he arranges. And that doesn't mean, you know, because we also see uh in Prabhupada's life, there were times when he really pushed for things. The Juhu temple. I mean, that was such, I mean, talk about having to push for things. He really pushed for that, and then they ended up getting the temple. Prabhupada knew when to push and when to pull.
The purpose is like he cheating. So it was obvious and everybody knew
Yeah.
he cheated. That's why Prabhupada pushed.
Yeah. But someone could say in a similar situation, well, I don't want to over endeavor, we'll just let him cheat. You know, so we want to know when to apply and when not to. But Krishna ended up arranging for them to get the temple.
Plus, he asked the people to go and destroy the whatever devotees created the small before
Yeah.
the temple. They went and destroyed and all that, and they had to contact Bal Thackeray to not to do that. So it means they were really offensive.
Yeah,
Against the
yeah.
devotees. So that was like height actually.
Yeah.
So Prabhupada was really furious, and when you do that, then obviously it's
Yeah.
pretty obvious.
Yeah. Okay, any other points or questions? Okay, if not, we'll end here. Thank you everyone for joining. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So,
Haribol.